Chapter 171, Giving Money. President Song had worked in the government for many years, so he was intimidating and authoritative. Duan Mei was just an ordinary worker who had lied to a leader. She was immediately frightened by President Song's angry expression. Her mouth moved a few times, but in the end, she didn't dare to make a fuss again. Duan Mei was quite perceptive. She could tell that this president was clearly a straightforward and righteous person. If she caused trouble again, he would really dare to call the police. What would happen to her after entering the police station? If the factory found out, they would definitely punish her. Duan Mei was so frightened that her legs went weak. She ran out of the door without even saying goodbye. From Duan Mei's behavior, President Song knew that Yu Bing had a tough time at home. He thought for a moment, then picked up the phone on the table and called his daughter. Yu Bing was still on a mission in the county today. Duan Mei couldn't look for her after returning to the village, so she could only return to the dormitory angrily. When they got out of the car, Duan Mei handed 0.2 yuan to the old man driving the ox cart. She didn't get anything done today, and she even spent money. Shirlian was also in the dormitory today. She had grown up in the city and had never done any farm work. After she had helped Yan Yin for 2 days, her body couldn't take it anymore. Today, she could only lie in the dormitory and rest. The two of them were eating and living together now. Of course, Shirlian knew what Duan Mei had gone to do in the morning. When she saw the anger on Duan Mei's face, she knew that things hadn't gone smoothly. Shirlian sat up in bed and deliberately said, Yu Bing has agreed, right? Yu Bing is not married and doesn't have her own family. It's only right for you to help her manage her money. After suffering for a few days, Duan Mei was already filled with resentment. When she heard Shirlian's words, she immediately began to complain. First, she scolded Yu Bing for being heartless. Then, she scolded Wu Jin again, saying that he was an evil capitalist who exploited Yu Bing and didn't pay her for her labor. Then, she scolded Yu Bing, saying that she was stupid for working for free. Then, Duan Mei scolded the 2 leaders she had seen today for being biased towards Yu Bing. Then, she scolded Yu Bing for being a slut and a bitch. Even Shirlian couldn't bear to hear this. No matter what, Yu Bing was Duan Mei's biological daughter. However, she didn't have the habit of upholding injustice. She listened with relish and even chimed in from time to time. After Duan Mei scolded all of them, she felt much better. Shirlian waited for Duan Mei to calm down before saying, "Sai, the older children get, the harder it is to control them. Isn't Yao Ling the same? She had such a good boyfriend in the past, but she broke up with him just like that. It's useless even if her father whips her." Shirlian deliberately used a similar experience to resonate with Duan Mei. As expected, Duan Mei began to lament how obedient Yu Bing was at home. Now, she was completely different. Shirlian also said sympathetically, "That's right. In the past, Yu Bing used to stay at home and work without complaint. Look at her now. She's driving a tow truck everywhere." Duan Mei nodded in agreement. Shirlian continued, "We've known each other for so many years. Don't blame me for being blunt. If we were in the city, I would indeed look down on Yu Bing. In the past, she was weak and sickly. Now, she has finally recuperated, but she's busy working all day. Which family wouldn't want a daughter-in-law who focuses on the family? But Yan Yin likes her." In the past, the 2 of them didn't interact much in the neighborhood. Now, after interacting in the same village for some time, Yan Yin has taken a fancy to Yu Bing. I'm indeed a little snobbish. I like the fact that Yu Bing can give Yan Yin a good job. It's my fault for hiding the fact that Yu Bing is the factory director. I was just afraid that my family wouldn't be able to afford it if the betrothal gift is too high. Yan Yin really likes her, so I'm in a dilemma. Now, let's be frank. I think it's a little difficult for you to get Yu Bing's salary. Her attitude that night was so tough. She would rather not work than give you the salary." When Duan Mei heard this, she felt a little disdainful. She cursed Shirlian for acting so pretentious. Yan Yin liked Yu Bing? Why not just say that Yan Yin liked Yu Bing's ability to change his position? However, when she heard Shirlian expose the fact that as a mother, she couldn't do anything to her daughter, she felt helpless and resentful. She hated Yu Bing for making a fool of her. Shirlian ignored the displeasure on Duan Mei's face. After all, neither of them had the upper hand in this matter now, so she said, "In any case, my family's attitude won't change. Since Yan Yin likes Yu Bing and I can't bear to let Yan Yin farm anymore, as long as you and Mr. Yu agree, I'll propose marriage immediately after I return to the city." Subscribe and read more novel to help us update chapter quickly. Thank you so much. Chapter 172, Annoying. Duan Mei had mixed feelings. Yu Bing was successful now, but she couldn't get any benefits. This glory had nothing to do with her. However, if she married Yu Bing off just like that, the betrothal gift she got back definitely wouldn't be high. She felt very conflicted. Duan Mei lowered her eyes and thought for a long time. In the end, she decided not to rush it. She looked at Shilian and smiled. Yu Bing hid so many things from the family. I have to go home and tell my husband first. As for the marriage proposal, we'll talk about it when we return to the city. Since we live upstairs and downstairs from each other, it's very convenient to discuss it. Hearing this, Shilian could only give up, but she was still confident in her plan. In fact, when Shilian found out that the factory was in debt and Yu Bing didn't have a salary, she wanted to give up. She had the same worry as Duan Mei. She was afraid that the factory would close down before it could even finish paying off its debt. Then, all her efforts would go down the drain. However, later, Yao Nian told her in private that the village's industry was a pilot project chosen by the county head, so she continued to follow the original plan. The county head's attention meant special treatment. This factory wouldn't close down that easily. However, Duan Mei thought that she was superior to the villagers since she was from the city. She was unwilling to go to the village to chat with people, so she saw Yu Yin the most. However, Yu Yin despised Yu Bing. How could she take the initiative to mention the project Yu Bing was in charge of? That was why Duan Mei didn't know anything and was taken advantage of by Shilian. At 6:30 p.m., Yu Bing still hadn't arrived home, but Jiang Chun, who was in the small courtyard, welcomed two guests. Woof woof. Barking came from the courtyard. Yu Bing and Jiang Chun had named the puppy Little Tiger because they hoped that it could be as majestic as a tiger. Little Tiger lived up to its name. As long as anyone stepped into the courtyard, other than Xiao Sheng, they would roar to show off regardless of whether the guest was friend or foe. Jiang Chun had just finished eating when she heard the barking and immediately walked to the courtyard. Song Li, Sister Yun. Jiang Chun greeted the two of them with a smile. Then, she turned to look at Little Tiger. Little Tiger, they're one of us. You're not allowed to be mean to them. Jiang Chun had often heard Yu Bing mention the two of them in the past. Later on their day off, they had even met them twice when they went to the city to buy things. They had also gone to a restaurant for a meal together, so they knew each other. Wang Yun smiled and said, Jiang Chun, I've never been to your place before, so I came to take a look today. As she spoke, she handed over some fruits as a gift. Welcome. Why did you bring gifts? Don't buy them next time. Jiang Chun took the gifts and welcomed the two of them to the living room before handing over 2 cups of honey water. When Song Li saw that Jiang Chun was alone, she asked and found out that Yu Bing had yet to return from her assignment. Song Li could only tell Wang Yun the purpose of this trip and asked Jiang Chun to pass on the message. She waited for a while, but no one returned, so she rode back. When Yu Bing returned home at 9 o'clock in the evening, Jiang Chun heard the sound of a car from afar, so she opened the door. After Yu Bing entered the kitchen to eat, Jiang Chun immediately told her about Wang Yun and Song Li's visit. The Song family and Wang Yun were worried that if your mother made a big deal out of it, it would affect you negatively, so the two of them specifically came to talk about this. Auntie Duan, on the other hand, wants to fabricate bad things about you in order to get your salary. Compared to Jiang Chun, who was indignant, Yu Bing had long expected that her mother wouldn't let the matter rest. However, she didn't expect her mother to risk not being able to get her retirement money to go to the commune. She felt disappointed, but the Song family's actions warmed Yu Bing's heart. Yu Bing had to admit that the relationship between people wasn't determined by blood. Therefore, she would repay whoever treated her well in this life. Duan Mei really had the spirit of an unkillable cockroach. For the past few days, she had been repeatedly rejected by different people. She originally wanted to give up, but when she woke up the next day, she made the decision to look for Yu Bing again. She had already confirmed that Yu Bing had completed the county's assignment yesterday, so Yu Bing would definitely go to the factory today. She wanted to go to the factory to stop Yu Bing. When Duan Mei arrived at the factory, she saw Yu Bing and Wu Jin. Duan Mei planned to make a fuss if there was really no other way. If Yu Bing still wanted to manage the workers, she couldn't afford to suffer this humiliation. Subscribe and read more novel to help us update chapter quickly. Thank you so much. Chapter 173, Stop Her. Thinking that she had something on Yu Bing, Duan Mei walked into the factory confidently. Yu Bing. At this moment, Yu Bing was calculating the price with the list of goods. When she saw Duan Mei, she knew that she was here to cause trouble. She called out calmly, Mom. Coincidentally, Mr. Wu is also here, so let's chat for a while. Duan Mei looked at Yu Bing threateningly. Yu Bing remained silent. Duan Mei resented Yu Bing for being so ruthless and forcing her to throw a tantrum in public. Village Chief, don't you think children should give their money to the family to supplement the family's expenses? Wu Jin didn't expect to get dragged into this mess. He thought for a moment and said, "It depends on each family's individual circumstances. It can't be generalized." Duan Mei rolled her eyes when she heard Wu Jin's diplomatic answer. She scolded Yu Bing in a low voice. "Yu Bing, I've raised you since you were young, but you don't plan to give your family a single cent? I'm giving you a chance to maintain your dignity by whispering to you now." Yu Bing didn't care about this so-called chance at all. She said louder than usual, "Mom, if you think I'm wrong, you can say it out loud." The workers' attention was attracted by the sound. They couldn't help but slow down and listen attentively. Duan Mei didn't expect that not only did Yu Bing not care, but she also took the initiative to make things public. In order to make the public take her side, Duan Mei immediately pretended to be meek and said bitterly, "Yu Bing, I didn't raise you properly. You don't have any gratitude at all. How did you become like this?" Yu Bing smiled gently. "Mom, I told you that when you and Dad grow old, I will give you the same amount of retirement money as my brother and sister will. Now, the family's income of 92 yuan is more than enough to support 4 people. I'm not in good health. I have to spend 12 yuan to treat illnesses and nourish my body. Every year, the government only distributes staple food. I have to spend extra money on other things like egg, meat, and condiments. I don't have any money left. Moreover, this place is far from home. I have to save some money for emergencies. I really don't have any extra money for you." 92 yuan. Oh my God. 92 yuan is enough to eat meat every day, right? The supply in the city is also limited. Even if they have money, they might not have that many meat stamps. In that case, won't they be able to save a lot of money every month? After Yu Bing said it out loud, everyone knew what Duan Mei was planning. Seeing this, Duan Mei could only say, "You young people spend money extravagantly. I'm just helping you save it. I won't touch your money. If you need money, you can borrow it from the village first. Doesn't the factory still owe you your salary?" Yu Bing had already said what she needed to say, so she couldn't be bothered to waste time talking about this anymore. "Mom, I'm busy delivering goods now. It's not easy for you to have time off work these few days. Rest well in the dormitory. You'll be busy again when you go back in 2 days." With that, she wanted to leave. Duan Mei hurriedly pulled her back and said angrily, "Have you even accompanied me properly these past few days? Is this how you treat your daughter? Don't even think about going anywhere today." Mr. Wei had gone to keep an eye on the workers who had finished loading the goods. When he heard this after he returned to the warehouse, he immediately panicked. "Yu Bing, you can't shirk responsibility at the critical moment. The contract says it very clearly. The goods from the fertilizer factory must be delivered today. If the delivery is delayed, if the other party thinks that we violated the contract and fines us, we'll be screwed." Zhao Lin was also in the workshop just now and was still immersed in the news of the mother and daughter's terrible relationship. When she heard this, she immediately reacted. Hence, he went forward to stop Duan Mei and said with a smile, "Yu Bing is indeed busy. These are all serious matters. When she's done, we'll definitely let her accompany you." Mr. Wei was a man, so it wasn't appropriate for him to touch her. He could only use his body to block in front of her as he winked at Yu Bing to hint at her to leave quickly. Yu Bing couldn't help but purse her lips and snicker when she saw their actions. With someone shielding her, she ran out of the factory and started driving. When Duan Mei bypassed the two of them, Yu Bing had already driven away. Duan Mei was so angry that she stomped her feet. She turned around and looked at Zhao Lin and Mr. Wei, who were standing behind her. At this moment, one was looking at the sky and the other was looking at the ground. Duan Mei could only glare at the two of them and leave angrily. Subscribe and read more novel to help us update chapter quickly. Thank you so much. Chapter 174, Only You. Duan Mei returned to the dormitory building angrily and rushed up the stairs. Ah! There were 2 exclamations. Duan Mei was furious and had been holding it in just now. Now was the time to vent her anger. Before she could see the person clearly, she shouted, "Can't you watch where you're going?" After Yu Yan stood still, she saw that it was Duan Mei. Before she could call for help, she heard her mother's roar. This was the first time Yu Yan had seen Duan Mei in such an irritable state. She widened her eyes in shock. At this moment, Duan Mei took a closer look and realized that she had bumped into Yu Yan. When she saw Yu Yan's stunned expression, she immediately put on an anxious expression. "Yu Yan, did I hurt you? I was walking too quickly just now. I'm really sorry." Yu Yan came back to her senses. When she saw Duan Mei sizing her up anxiously, she no longer cared about what had just happened and hurriedly replied, "Mom, I'm fine." After Duan Mei looked around and realized that there was no one around, she pulled Yu Yan into the kitchen. After all, at this time, it was the least likely for anyone to go to the kitchen. She was worried that Yu Yin would have a grudge against her. After all, the two of them had just acknowledged each other a few days ago, so what Duan Mei had to do now was appease her. Hence, she said gently, something happened just now and I couldn't control my emotions. Please don't blame me. Yu Yin shook her head gently. Everyone had times when they couldn't control their emotions. Moreover, her mother immediately apologized to her. How could she still be angry? Yu Yin thought of her mother's words and asked with concern, Mom, I don't blame you. What happened just now to make you so angry? Duan Mei quietly observed Yu Yan's attitude. Seeing that she didn't seem to be faking it, she was relieved and sighed. It's fine. Just take good care of yourself. Those troublesome things should be handled by the adults. Duan Mei couldn't say that she didn't succeed in asking Yu Bing for money, right? She could only use the words parents often use to brush Yu Yin off. Unexpectedly, Yu Yin insisted that Duan Mei tell her. Actually, she wanted to show off how understanding she was while Duan Mei was in the countryside these few days. Duan Mei lowered her eyes and said helplessly, you know that our family's conditions aren't very good. I wanted to ask Yu Bing send a portion of her monthly driver's salary home to subsidize the family. Who knew that she wouldn't help at all? At this point, Duan Mei pretended to choke up. She covered her mouth with her hand and turned her head to the side, looking very sad. When Yu Yin heard this, she was extremely angry. How could she do that? Her family isn't wealthy. Now, she has a job, but she actually dared to refuse. I'll go look for her. With that, she looked like she was about to go out to settle scores with Yu Bing. How could Duan Mei really let Yu Yin go? Yu Bing might tell Duan Mei the truth, so Duan Mei hurriedly went forward to stop Yu Yin. Forget it, don't go. If you go to her, she'll argue with you. I don't want to see you two fight. Yu Yin panicked when she heard this. Mom, I'm not afraid of arguing with her. Is it reasonable for her to disregard the well-being of the family? Duan Mei naturally refused to let go. She said kindly, Yu Bing has been in poor health since she was young. I can understand if she wants to save some money and eat better food. Besides, if our family is in trouble, we can grit our teeth and endure it. I was too angry just now. Now that I think about it, it's actually nothing. As parents, we just want our children to be well. These words touched Yu Yin. She felt that she was very lucky to have such a kind biological mother, unlike her adoptive mother, who always spoke so stiffly. When she thought of how Yu Bing didn't cherish such an opportunity to contribute to the family, she felt very indignant for her blood-related relatives. Then, Yu Yin said with self-reproach, Mom, why didn't you tell me before? I thought that your lives would be much better after I left, so I didn't ask about your current situation. Duan Mei lowered her head and shook it a few times. We didn't raise you for that long. How can we let you help us? Yu Yin was very moved when she heard this, but she felt that Duan Mei still wasn't treating her as a family member. That was why Duan Mei looked for Yu Bing but was unwilling to look for her. Yu Yin felt saddened. This was an opportunity for Yu Yin to show off. This way, they would know that Yu Bing wasn't worthy of being their family member at all. Only then would they cherish her after she returned. After making up her mind, Yu Yin looked straight at Duan Mei and held her hand. Her tone was gentle yet firm as she said, Mom, if there's any trouble in the future, you have to tell me. We're related by blood. Anyone can raise me, but you're the only one who gave birth to me. Subscribe and read more novel to help us update chapter quickly. Thank you so much. Chapter 175, Foolish and Rich. With that, she took out 65 yuan from her pocket. She had saved it up for half a year, but at this moment, Yu Yin wasn't reluctant at all. After she counted out 50 yuan, she added another 10 yuan and only left 5 yuan for herself to send a telegram home in 2 days and ask her adoptive parents to send more money over. Mom, take it. It's not much money, but it's a token of my appreciation. Duan Mei was shocked by Yu Yan's actions. She only planned to maintain her image as a loving mother. She didn't expect Yu Yin to take so much money. Duan Mei lowered her eyes and thought about it. In the end, she resisted the urge to take the money and refused. No, the expenses in the countryside are not small either. Keep it for yourself. Besides, we can't use your money. When Yu Yin heard this, she became even more anxious. Her eyes turned red as she asked, Mom, do you not treat me as your daughter? Only then did Duan Mei take it with a helpless expression. In fact, she heaved a sigh of relief. She had rejected Yu Yin because she wanted to test her daughter's tolerance for her family's situation. She was now certain that her second daughter was a rich fool. Duan Mei suppressed her joy and frowned slightly as she said softly, Yu Yin, that's not what I meant. I was worried that if you gave the money to the family, it would be difficult for you to explain it to your adoptive parents. Only then did Yu Yan smile. Don't worry, Mom. I'll handle it. Seeing this, Duan Mei was relieved. If Yu Yan couldn't deal with them, she would rather ask for less each time. As time passed, she could save up a lot of money bit by bit. The mother and daughter conversed for a while more before parting. The two of them had a tacit understanding not to let others know. Duan Mei was worried about Shirlian, while Yu Yan was worried about Su Ling, who was in the same city as her. Su Ling's house wasn't far from hers. If her true relationship with Duan Mei was exposed, it was inevitable that her adoptive parents would find out. If they were angry and stopped sending her money every month, how could she survive in the countryside? Moreover, now that she knew that her biological family's conditions were not good, she had to hide this matter even more so that she could send her adoptive parents' money back to her biological family. Besides, she was still hoping that they would help transfer her back to the city in 2 years. She came here this time purely to get close to Yu Bing and return to her biological parents' house. She didn't plan to stay in the countryside for the rest of her life. However, the truth would always be revealed eventually. Shuya left the kettle on the table when she was eating breakfast in the kitchen this morning. When she wanted to drink water in the field, she realized it. She applied for leave from her team leader and ran back to the dormitory building. She didn't expect to discover such a shocking secret. After sensing that the two of them were about to come out, she immediately left the door quietly. On the day Duan Mei and Shirlian returned home, Yu Bing brought 15 pounds of corn to the lobby of the intellectual team dormitory early in the morning. Yu Bing handed the corn in her hand to Yan Yan. This is my mother's expenses for the past few days. You helped pay for it previously. Yan Yan smiled gently and rejected, Yu Bing, with our relationship, there's no need to return the favor. Your mother is also my mother. Seeing that Yan Yan didn't take it, Yu Bing placed it at his feet. Take it. We have nothing to do with each other, so I have to return the favor. Yan Yan's smile froze. Seeing this, Duan Mei smiled and said, Yan Yan, there's no need to be anxious. Let me discuss this matter with your mother. Shirlian knew that Duan Mei's attitude was one thing, but saying this in public was another. Shirlian saw that there were a few intellectuals in the hall who had also heard it, and her expression was very ugly. However, she couldn't cause trouble again, or things would be even worse. She could only scowl. After Yan Yan placed the food back in the dormitory, the few of them left the dormitory building. When Duan Mei walked out of the courtyard, she saw Yu Yan under the osmanthus tree. Despite seeing the reluctance in Yu Yan's eyes, she didn't dare to respond. She only nodded quietly as a farewell. Shirlian also noticed Yu Yan. When she saw Yu Yan's face, she felt that Yu Yan looked very familiar, but she didn't think much of it. Today, Yu Bing and Yan Yan both took a day off and sent their mothers off. Yu Bing helped Duan Mei onto the back seat and pointed at a sack on it. Mom, there's sweet potatoes and yams inside. I also put some dried sweet potatoes and radishes in it. The sweet potato noodles weigh 20 pounds, and there are 2 bottles of jam at the top. Be careful not to break them. Duan Mei's expression changed and she immediately asked, You weren't there when I went to your house 2 days ago. Jian Chun didn't tell you that I asked you to buy 200 pounds of rice? Subscribe and read more novel to help us update chapter quickly. Thank you so much. Chapter 176, Gift. Yu Bing replied nonchalantly, She did, but I didn't have enough money and you didn't leave me any money. This is all I could buy. I only had the money to buy the jam after I got the staff discount. With that, she turned around and jumped out of the car without looking at Duan Mei's ashen expression. She started shaking the handle at the front of the car to start the car. When Shirlian heard Yu Bing's reply, she was in a good mood. She was very happy with Yu Bing's unyielding attitude towards Duan Mei. This way, she wouldn't have to worry about Yu Bing subsidizing her family after marrying into the Yao family. Yan Yan didn't prepare anything for Shirlian. He only took the blanket and spread it on the seat. He even borrowed 2 straw hats and handed them to Duan Mei and Shirlian. Shirlian was very gratified to see Yan Yan's actions. She felt that her son had become much more sensible and considerate. As for the food, they had enough at home. She wouldn't want it even if Yan Yan gave it to her. Before she went to the countryside, she specifically asked her daughter for some household expenses and bought this month's worth of food. Yu Bing drove alone in front while Yan Yan kissed up to Duan Mei from behind, making her happy and making Shirlian jealous. Shirlian, Yan Yan's biological mother, had never been coaxed by Yan Yan like this before, but she understood. After all, Yan Yan had yet to marry Yu Bing, so her son naturally had to put in some effort. When Yan Yan got Yu Bing, she would get payback on Yu Bing and let Yu Bing know that it wasn't easy to be the daughter-in-law of the Yao family. Yu Bing drove quickly. When they arrived at the train station in the city, it wasn't even 11 o'clock. The few of them went to buy bus tickets first. Yu Bing naturally paid for Duan Mei's bus ticket, while Shilian paid for her own. After Yu Bing sent Duan Mei to the waiting room, she left directly. Yan Yin originally wanted to show off in front of Duan Mei again, but he didn't dare to delay anymore. Shilian was also worried that Yu Bing would leave Yan Yin behind, so she couldn't be bothered to remind him anymore. She hurriedly took out 10 yuan from her pocket and stuffed it into Yan Yin's hand so that he could spend it. After Yan Yin said goodbye to Duan Mei, he hurriedly went out to chase after Yu Bing. At this moment, Yu Bing was starting the car. When she saw Yan Yin panting as he ran to her side, she was a little disappointed. She wanted to quickly start the car and leave so that Yan Yin had to walk back. What a pity. After the car started, Yan Yin wanted to climb into the empty seat beside Yu Bing. The front seat was more comfortable than the back and they could chat to improve their relationship. If not for the fact that he wanted to curry favor with Duan Mei just now, he would have sat in the front long ago. Yu Bing blocked the seat beside her with a joystick. She raised her chin and gestured for Yan Yin to go to the back. Yan Yin frowned and said, "There's an empty seat beside you. Why can't I sit there?" Yu Bing glanced at Yan Yin and said slowly, "I don't like people sitting beside me when I drive. If you don't want to sit in the back, you can walk back. I'll count to 3. If you don't get in the car, I'll drive. Oniyuro." When Yan Yin saw Yu Bing counting, he immediately ran to the back and climbed into the car before Yu Bing could count to 3. Before he could steady himself, the car started immediately. Yan Yin was startled. Fortunately, he was fast enough. After Yan Yin got into the car, he couldn't help but let his imagination run wild again. He clearly remembered that Xiaoxing and Jiang Chun both sat beside Yu Bing in the past. Jiang Chun sat beside her because they were on good terms, but what about Xiaoxing? Yan Yin couldn't help but suspect that the two of them were close. In addition, Xiaoxing was a man, and the two of them were neighbors. The more Yan Yin thought about it, the more uneasy he felt. What if Yu Bing took a fancy to that farmer? Therefore, even though the tow truck was loud, Yan Yin didn't want to let go of this rare chance to be alone with Yu Bing. He wanted to win Yu Bing's heart, so he spoke to Yu Bing loudly, but Yu Bing pretended not to hear him and focused on driving. At first, Yan Yin thought that Yu Bing didn't hear him, so he raised his voice again and again. Only when he shouted for the third time and Yu Bing didn't react did he realize that Yu Bing did it on purpose. Yan Yin was furious and filled with hatred. He had to teach Yu Bing a lesson after they got married in the future and let her know how a woman should treat her husband. It had to be said that Yan Yin and Shilian were indeed mother and son. Before the marriage was even confirmed, they were already thinking about how to deal with Yu Bing in the future. After sending Duan Mei off, Yu Bing returned to work. The Dragon Boat Festival was getting closer and closer. The factory worked overtime and sent the goods to various units at the agreed time. In the end, there were still about 200 pounds of cherries left. The ripe cherries had to be picked from the tree, but after picking them, they couldn't be kept for more than a few days, so Yu Bing ordered them to continue producing. This jam could last for at least 8 months. She didn't believe that she wouldn't be able to sell it in such a long time. Even if the shelf life became shorter, it was better than letting the fruit rot. Subscribe and read more novel to help us update chapter quickly. Thank you so much. Chapter 177, Shortcut. That night, Yu Bing jogged at the door of the house again. She suddenly had an idea, so she went into the Xiao family's house. At this moment, Jiang Chun and Xiaoli were practicing weaving bamboo gift boxes under the corridor. Although the orders had all been delivered and there was no need to accept gift boxes for the time being, Jiang Chun had failed to make 5 out of 10 gift boxes previously, so she came to look for Xiaoli to teach her so that there would be more gift boxes the next time the factory accepted them. When Xiaoli heard footsteps, she looked up in Yu Bing's direction. "Sister Yu Bing." Xiaolin was originally playing with water at the side, but when she heard Yu Bing, she immediately stopped and ran to Yu Bing to call for help. Yu Bing was very popular in the Xiao family. Yu Bing smiled and reached out to caress Xiaolin's inch-long hair. Although it felt a little prickly, it was very comfortable to the touch. Yu Bing couldn't help but rub it a few more times. "Where's your brother? I have something to tell him." Xiaolin replied softly, "My brother went to the back." Yu Bing knew that this meant that he climbed up the mountain, so she carried a small stool and watched Xiaoli and Jiang Chun weave a bamboo basket while waiting. Half an hour later, Xiaoxing went down the mountain and returned home drenched in sweat. When he saw the 2 new guests at home, he wasn't surprised because he was already used to it. When Yu Bing saw Xiaoxing enter the woodshed with the hoe, she followed him in. Xiaoxing turned around and smiled. "Are you waiting for me?" Yu Bing crossed her arms and leaned against the doorframe with a smile. "I have something to discuss with you." After Xiaoxing put the things away, he walked to the door and looked at Yu Bing curiously. "Tell me." The two of them were half a meter apart. Yu Bing could smell the faint smell of sweat on Xiaoxing's body. The smell of sweat was mixed with a grassy scent. She, who was usually a clean freak, actually wasn't put off. Yu Bing wasn't even as tall as Xiaoxing's shoulder. When Xiaoxing saw Yu Bing's distracted look, he took a step forward and waved his hand in front of her eyes as he called out softly, "Yu Bing." Yu Bing blinked and came back to her senses. Her eyes darted around as she suddenly remembered why she had come over. Ah. By the way, there are still more than 300 bottles of jam in the factory. I want to discuss it with you. Should we stock up and sell them? Xiaoxing asked in disbelief. You're saying that we should get the stock from the factory and sell it on the black market? Yu Bing nodded. Let's see if Brother Chang has any channels to sell it to the city. Actually, I suggested this idea because I considered the future operating model of the food factory. I hope that the food factory will produce food every month. Otherwise, with just the in-season jam and fish, the factory will be empty for half a year that year. It can indeed have an income-generating effect, but it's not obvious. That's why I want to use your channel to open the market of the village's food factory. Otherwise, we can only go to the supply and marketing club. However, the brand is not famous yet, so they will definitely use this fact to lower the price. Moreover, with the limited spending power of the county city, the amount the county's supply and marketing club wants is also limited. If we want the entire factories to keep moving, we have to get more orders. Xiaoxing was in no hurry to reply to this. After thinking for a moment, he lowered his eyes and said, I have something to tell you. Yu Bing looked at Xiaoxing curiously. Xiaoxing looked at Yu Bing fixedly. I've already taken over Brother Chang's faction in the county city. Yu Bing's eyes widened as she asked in surprise, when did you agree? Xiaoxing replied calmly, a week ago. I was dealing with the vegetable fields on the mountain just now. The money comes slowly and the job consumes a lot of energy and time. If I want to focus on that side, I definitely won't be able to take care of this side, so I plan to stop selling vegetables after harvesting the last batch. Yu Bing was very surprised by Xiaoxing's decision. She thought that Xiaoxing would be afraid of the risks and choose to come to the factory. However, this was Xiaoxing's personal choice. Although she didn't agree, she couldn't say anything. In fact, Xiaoxing had no choice but to make this choice. After all, Xiao Li's surgery fee was too expensive. After cooperating with Yu Bing, his earning speed had increased greatly. However, at this speed, no matter how capable he was, he would still have to wait for 2 years. However, things would be different after he took over the county's black market. As long as all the goods passed his hands, there would be a transaction fee. Moreover, Xiaoxing didn't want Xiao Li to wait any longer. Xiao Li was going to celebrate her 9th birthday next month. Previously, there were only few ways to earn money, so he had no choice but to save money slowly. However, now that a shortcut had suddenly appeared in front of him, even if it was very dangerous, he couldn't help but be tempted. Subscribe and read more novel to help us update chapter quickly. Thank you so much. 178 Advancement. Brother Chang had retired from the county city to take over the market in City Z. After Xiaoxing was promoted, although he was still under Brother Chang's control, he had a lot of control over the county city's black market. Most importantly, he could take over a transport convoy that Brother Chang had developed previously. With the convoy, there were too many things he could do. Therefore, Xiaoxing was very tempted by Yu Bing's suggestion. He now had the ability to take on the factory's orders. Moreover, as a middleman, he could earn money quickly. Xiaoxing didn't think too much about it and agreed readily. In that case, we have to implicate Uncle Jane. We have to look for him together. Although the government didn't interfere with the sales route of township enterprises, it had to be legal. For example, the black market wasn't legal. Under normal circumstances, township enterprises could only sell products in bulk to units or supply and marketing clubs. Purchasing departments of companies would only go to the food factory or supply and marketing club to buy products on daily employee benefits during the holidays. The supply and marketing club was the primary model of modern business superpowers. They targeted the terminal market, which was the people in the entire county. However, after the food had been distributed, people would only go to the supply company to buy it if they liked it. Peasants who didn't work rarely wanted to buy these products. Their money was mostly spent on necessities, such as firewood, rice, oil, and salt. They were only willing to go to the supply company to buy cakes and pastries during the holidays. However, be it workers or farmers, if they wanted to buy things, they had to have stamps. Therefore, these legitimate channels restricted the production of the factory. In Yu Bing's current situation, there were a few villages with food processing plants, but the number of enterprises in the county city was fixed and the demand was very limited, so most villages chose to produce them according to the required quantity. If there were no orders, they would return to the fields to continue farming. If Yu Bing wanted the factory to operate all year round, other than letting the factory produce new products that were not available in the city, she also had to sell the products to further counties and cities. For example, Feng Kai relied on his connections to get an order from the provincial city. Yu Bing wanted to distribute the goods to various places through Shaoxing's black market. Black market transactions didn't accept stamps, so it was convenient for many people with money but no stamps in the city. These people were customers Yu Bing wanted to win over. This matter definitely had to be discussed with Wu Jin. Although Yu Bing was the factory director, this was a public industry in the village. Without Wu Jin's approval, if such a large amount of goods couldn't be sold, Wu Jin would definitely investigate it. If we approve it directly, the wholesale price will definitely reduce the cost of transporting products from the county to the city. Moreover, the retail price of wholesale and selling units is different. The price has to be lower, but the exact price will definitely have to be discussed with Mr. Wu. There was no time to lose. The two of them went to Wu Jin's house in the dark and explained their intentions. Wu Jin was originally smoking a pipe leisurely when he was shocked by their bold plan. That's right. He had also sold things on the black market previously. He had brought Shaoxing into the business, but that only involved himself. Now, the two of them wanted to implicate the entire village. Wu Jin looked at Shaoxing and said after a while, "Looks like Yu Bing already knows what you've been doing behind people's backs." Yu Bing interrupted, "Shaoxing and I are partners." Shaoxing had never revealed to Yu Bing that Wu Jin had also sold things together in the black market. Yu Bing simply felt that she had to show some sincerity to let Wu Jin see her determination. Reselling goods was a serious crime. Yu Bing took the initiative to expose herself because she hoped that Wu Jin would believe her. Moreover, Wu Jin had long known about Shaoxing's methods, but Shaoxing had been unscathed for so many years, so she could tell that Wu Jin was a reliable person. Wu Jin really didn't expect Yu Bing, a little girl from the city, to be so bold as to go to the black market with Shaoxing to do business. However, from this, he could tell that the two of them had already made up their minds. They didn't plan to discuss it with him. They probably wanted to convince him. Yu Bing's suggestion was indeed very beneficial to the entire factory, but it was too reckless. Wu Jin sighed as he said, "Yu Bing, I know you're thinking for the sake of the factory and hope that the villagers' economic standards can improve, but this pathway is too dangerous. If the higher-ups find out that our village's factories sold the goods to the black market's channels, this matter will implicate the entire village. As the village chief, I can't take this risk. I have to be responsible for the villagers. Subscribe and read more novel to help us update chapter quickly. Thank you so much." 179 A new move. Yu Bing expected this outcome, so she continued, "Don't you think the scrutiny on the black market isn't that serious now? Moreover, I've already thought about it. We'll find a few enterprises in the city where Shaoxing is distributing the goods and get the orders through our connections. On the surface, everyone will see the purchasing documents of the enterprises, and when we transport the goods over, we'll naturally be able to do it openly." After Yu Bing finished speaking, she tapped Shaoxing gently with the tip of her foot. Shaoxing knew that it was his turn to speak. "Uncle Jane, I'm the one protecting Brother Chang's relationship with the county bureau now. Brother Chang also has people in City Z. If they hear any news, I'll definitely know in advance. The foraged goods list is mixed in with the goods lists of various enterprises. Some small factories don't even have to use a stamp to place orders. They just have to sign an autograph. Mr. Wei's focus is only on checking the numbers. As long as he gets the money from the total number of goods, he definitely won't notice anything." Wu Jin picked up the pipe and took a deep puff. After a moment of silence, he said, "I'll think about it again. You guys can go back first." Yu Bing wanted to say something else, but Shaoxing pulled Yu Bing's arm gently. "Go back first. I haven't talked to Uncle Jin in a long time. I'll leave later." Yu Bing glanced at Shaoxing and understood the hint. Hence, she didn't say anything else and stood up to say goodbye to Wu Jin. After Wu Jin left the courtyard, he said, "Don't think I didn't see the two of you sending secret signals." Shaoxing pursed his lips and smiled. "I knew I couldn't hide it from you. You didn't force me to leave with her because you wanted to hear what I planned to tell you." Wu Jin glanced at Shaoxing and snorted as he smoked. Shaoxing took the initiative to take Wu Jin's tobacco bag. He took out a few strands of tobacco and kneaded them into fluffy balls before putting them in the pipe. "Actually, you're also tempted, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't have hesitated." Shaoxing and Wu Jin were considered old friends, so he knew Wu Jin very well. "Now that you're the village chief, it's impossible for you to rely on your connections to apply for half a month of leave from the village every year, like when you were idle in the past. You used to travel extensively to collect goods and sell them. The factory is opening now. Putting aside the fact that the factory still owes money, if it's really open for half a year and closed for half a year, it will be difficult for the debt to be repaid in 2 years. The village won't get much money in the first 2 years. I know that the families of your comrades who sacrificed themselves are in a bad situation. If you really want to wait for the factory to make a profit, I'm afraid you can only use your work points and your salary as the village chief for the next 2 years. With that, he added, but your salary is meager. Wu Jin, who was about to take a whiff, paused and knocked Xiaoxing's arm with the pipe, making Xiaoxing grimace. You always want to use this method to convince me. Aren't you very smart? Why don't you try something new? Xiaoxing smiled and said, Uncle, it does not matter if it's new or not, as long as it works. Wu Jin had to admit that Xiaoxing's trick worked every time. If it was just him alone, he would definitely work with Xiaoxing and Yu Bing. However, this matter involved too many people, so he still couldn't make up his mind. He glanced at Xiaoxing and changed the topic. Are you and Yu Bing together? Xiaoxing was shocked and hurriedly replied, Don't talk nonsense. Yu Bing and I are in a platonic cooperative relationship. When Wu Jin saw Xiaoxing's flushed face, he rolled his eyes. Yu Bing is not bad. If you're interested in her, hurry up and make a move. Otherwise, she might be snatched away. Xiaoxing felt his heart race. After calming down for a while, he slowly said, Before Xiao Li's eyes recover, I won't think about anything. Besides, with my family's conditions, whoever I marry will suffer. Wu Jin was tired of hearing Xiaoxing's old excuse for refusing to get married and knew his obsession with treating Xiao Li's eyes, so he stopped persuading him. Go back first. I'll think about it. Xiaoxing didn't delay any further. All right, uncle, take the time to think about it. Yu Bing didn't know if Wu Jin had been convinced by Xiaoxing or not, so she could only wait. After work in the evening, Wu Jin went into the orchard to find Yu Bing and asked her to go to his house with Xiaoxing after dinner. When Yu Bing heard this, her eyes lit up. She knew that he probably agreed. In fact, be it the ecological industry in the village or finding a sales route for the factory, Yu Bing was thinking for the sake of the factory and herself. Subscribe and read more novel to help us update chapter quickly. Thank you so much. 180 Meeting Zhang Chao again. In the beginning, she had accepted this position to prevent herself from farming. Now, to fulfill the duties of her position, she was looking for a market. As the factory director, she had to do her best and improve the living standards of these villagers. This was also her original intention for establishing this industrial chain. After Yu Bing and Xiaoxing finished eating, they gathered at Wu Jin's house again. Wu Jin confirmed with Yu Bing, you previously said that you plan to find a few enterprises to get the order at the place where Xiaoxing is distributing the goods. Are you planning to go yourself or call Feng Kai? Yu Bing replied, I'll call Feng Kai along. If Xiaoxing has many places to distribute goods in the later stages, we need someone to specifically maintain these late-stage relationships. Feng Kai is the chief of the sales department. He has to be familiar with these customers' information. Moreover, I don't have that much energy to spend on these sorts of things. Wu Jin agreed with this. Then, he touched his nose and asked, I also want to participate. Are the two of you willing to let me? Xiaoxing naturally knew the reason, but Yu Bing was a little shocked. She thought that she and Xiaoxing had actually convinced Mr. Wu. The two of them naturally agreed. Then, Wu Jin said slowly, then I'll ask you two another question. If you two agree, let's do it. Yu Bing and Xiaoxing nodded and looked at Wu Jin seriously. Wu Jin glanced at the two of them. If we use the entire village as a bet, I won't agree. So, we can do it, but if we're really caught and implicated, the three of us have to bear the responsibility. We can't implicate everyone in the village. The two of them hesitated for a moment when they heard this, but they also remembered that although this matter expanded the factory's sales, they were profiting the most. Hence, the two of them nodded in agreement again. The three of them trusted each other, so they didn't write any contracts. After all, writing it in black and white would leave evidence and attract trouble. The remaining jams were personally sent by Yu Bing to the warehouse designated by Xiaoxing. However, what shocked Yu Bing was that the person who received the goods was Zhang Chao. Zhang Chao had already returned to his usual frivolous self. When he saw Yu Bing, he was a little embarrassed, but when he thought of the group of lackeys standing behind him, he quickly put on an arrogant look. Yu Bing, who thought of the calm and level-headed Zhang Chao in the future, suddenly couldn't help but laugh. What are you laughing at? Thinking of how the other party had seen his woeful state, Zhang Chao thought that Yu Bing was mocking him and immediately widened his eyes as he glared at Yu Bing. Yu Bing was unafraid of Zhang Chao. She chuckled and put on a fierce look as she said, You'd better not be fierce to me. Otherwise, I know your home address, so I can look for Xiaoro at any time. Zhang Chao wasn't afraid of anyone, but he was afraid of his wife who cried at the drop of a hat. However, compared to Xiaoro crying at the drop of a hat, he was more afraid of Xiaoro breaking his hand and ignoring him. Xiaoro meant the world to Zhang Chao. However, in front of outsiders, Zhang Chao also cared about his reputation. He said stubbornly, tell her if you have the guts to. As if I'm afraid of her? What a joke. I can't be bothered to find trouble with you now. A gentleman doesn't argue with women, understand? With that, he turned around and shouted to his lackeys behind him, brothers, unload the goods. Seeing this, Yu Bing stopped teasing him. She was amused that Zhang Chao hadn't changed since then. Perhaps he was just sharp-tongued. After Yu Bing finished sending the goods, she took the forged procurement documents and returned to the village to report to Mr. Wei. Mr. Wei didn't know that the two people in charge would be so bold as to sell the goods on the black market. He took the documents without any suspicion and glanced at them casually. Then, he noted the name of the manufacturer and the goods. After counting the money, he recorded them. After the marketing direction for the food was set, Yu Bing began to focus on preparing to produce new products. At the end of April, there were already 1,000 eggs. Yu Bing finally decided on a few products, including ham sausage, purple yam cake, waffles, and egg yolk pastry. Although it wasn't the season for purple sweet potatoes, the production of purple sweet potatoes wasn't bad. Every family kept them in the cellar, so they could still harvest a lot during this season. The main ingredients of the waffles and egg yolk pastries were eggs and flour. She had to think of a way to discuss making ham sausage with the meat factory. Because ham sausage tasted good and was easy to carry, it became popular in the next few decades. Therefore, this was a must-have product for Yu Bing. Subscribe and read more novel to help us update chapter quickly. Thank you so much.